How did you like your cigar?
It was fantastic.
Did you? Did you like it? I haven't.
Nice.
I haven't sat down and had one for a while.
No, me either. That's the first one I smoked since probably vacation.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think. So I had one the other night because I had time off for Christmas. But before that, I genuinely don't know the last cigar. It might have been on our honeymoon. Like it was probably a long time ago. Yeah.
I can't remember. Did we smoke one on your wedding?
I did for sure. I don't remember if you did or not.
I did.
No.
I don't think I did.
I ran out during a song I didn't like and had a quick one.
No, I definitely don't. I don't think I did. I definitely remember not.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. All right, guys. Well, happy continued dry January. As you can hear, we do finally have a guest on the show. I'm done having COVID. So I mentioned this on the show. I had like a few weeks with no guests because it was around Christmas time. I didn't want to pull everybody away from their holidays and stuff. And then I got COVID.
And then he was really done.
And then I was like, no, I really can't have guests. So we do finally have a guest on the show. We got Mr. Bryce.
We're back.
We're back once again. Is this 5 or 6?
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I have spoken to people from Canada so many times.
So many times. Yeah. Yeah. We were, I think we were doing good in Australia and Denmark there for a minute.
Really?
Yeah.
Denmark?
Denmark. Yeah. That
nice.
I thought that was cool too. So if you're listening from Denmark, thank you because
Hello, Denmark.
That was pretty neat.
I just like being international. You know what I mean?
You're a man of many countries.
I am.
Yep. As you guys probably heard, we were smoking cigars prior to the show. So like I mentioned, you could bring a cigar for this episode if you want to have a cigar while you listen to us talk about cigars. As part of Dry January, we're going to talk about cigars, how they're similar to the hobby of whiskey, because they're a hobby that gets thrown together all the time, is cigars and whiskey. So we're going to talk about how it's similar, how it's different, things we like, things we don't like, just in terms of having cigars with your whiskey, and also we just had it without whiskey because it's Dry January. So I want to talk about those different things. First of all, how do you like cigars? I actually don't know as much about. I know exactly your experience with whiskey. I don't know very much your experience with cigars. So I
definitely like cigars. I actually will smoke a cigar by myself, as opposed to like I don't really drink whiskey by myself.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I do like it. I mean, it's nice to sit outside in the summer, smoke a cigar.
Yes, dude.
You know? The only thing I don't like about cigars is I don't like how the taste sticks around in my mouth.
Yes.
Like I feel like I need to use a bottle of mouthwash right after.
Yeah, especially the next morning.
Especially, I've had cigars that really dried my mouth out too.
Yeah.
Like bad.
Yeah.
Like the one that we just did, I don't feel that way about.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah. So for everybody listening, we had mini cigars so that it wouldn't take so long. Cigarillos. But I had Undercrown Sun-Grown was what you had, so it's a little bit lighter of a cigar from Drew Estate. And then I also had a Drew Estate Liga Privada No. 9 was my, I don't know if it's the No. 9. It's a Liga Privada, though, and it was a cigarillo. I don't know as much about cigars as I know about whiskey, but as you know, I actually was into cigars before I was into whiskey. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So cigars are what got me into whiskey because I was like, everybody always matches them together, and I was like, I want to try drinking whiskey with it. And I was like, this tastes terrible.
I think you were the person that introduced me to cigars.
Oh,
I would
that
imagine.
could be.
Probably back in high school.
I would probably imagine.
We were 18.
Yeah, yeah. That's back when you had to be 18.
Yeah.
That's what I always say.
Do you not have to be 18 now?
You'd be 21.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, for any tobacco.
Wow. Boy, lucky us, huh?
I know. We really lucked out. Literally. By the time we turned 21, it's right when they changed it. Yeah. And so I was into cigars before whiskey. And fun fact, so that was your episode. This is perfect. I didn't even plan this.
We come full circle.
Your episode was the Trying Whiskey side-by-side episode, the first one that you were on with Tullamore and Russell's Reserve.
Yep.
And that trick I got from cigars. That's actually where I decided to try that with whiskey, and I tried it with whiskey, and I'm like, oh, this works great. Because when I was trying to get into cigars, I was to the point where cigars tasted good, but they didn't really taste like anything. They just tasted good. And I wanted to learn to taste the notes. And I was reading online, they said if you want to develop your palate, have a super light cigar right next to a super dark cigar. Like have one and then put it out and have the other.
What is the difference between the light and the dark? What makes that? Like the curing of the leaf?
Yes, exactly. Okay. It has to do with how the leaves are cured. And then also there are different tobacco plants, like obviously. But I believe the color almost entirely comes from how they're cured.
That makes sense. Kind of like tea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it can also come from how they're grown, I believe. Like the Undercrown that you had, they have a Maduro, which is the dark, and then they also have the one that you had was sun grown, I believe, and there's also shade. And I don't know enough to know about how all that plays into the flavors, but I know it changes it.
Well, that makes sense then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there like regions, like specific regions that give different flavors? Yeah, that's what.
Cigars are big on regions, and you can taste it too. So before I got into whiskey, I did get deep enough to where I was like into that. Like, what does a Nicaraguan taste like? What does a Dominican taste like? What do Cuban seeds grown in Dominican taste like? And I got big into that, and you can taste the difference.
I bet.
Like big time once you get into it. No, I mean, it's no different than tasting an Irish versus a Scotch.
Right.
Same base ingredients, totally different taste, So that's exactly why they go hand in hand like that.
Right.
But I didn't know you like cigars. That's good then. This was a good episode to have you on. Yeah. I think we're going to get into, I want to first talk about how the taste is different, and then I want to talk about how the experience is different. And the experience will probably be the majority of the episode because that's the big
right. For me, tasting the difference is pretty tough still.
Yeah. And it's exactly. So how is the taste? I'll let you start. How is the taste of tasting a cigar? Like, obviously they have different flavors. It's a drink versus a smoke.
Right.
But how is the tasting experience a little bit different versus whiskey for you?
It's more pleasant to some extent.
Yeah.
It's less harsh. Like, I can do it. I don't want to say I have to prepare myself to drink a glass of whiskey, but there's a certain kind of misery that I expect with whiskey.
Misery. I love the word choice.
That I don't have to. I don't expect that with a cigar. I just know it's going to be pleasant every time.
Yeah, totally agreed. I think cigars, and this is probably because of that's how I got into whiskey. It's easier to learn to acquire the taste of a cigar because you do still kind of have to acquire it.
Right.
I remember the first time I had a cigar, I was like, what do people see in this?
Yeah. It's like coffee. It's just bitter to some extent,
Yeah. Now, in my opinion, and this is probably because I spend less time with cigars than I do with whiskey. With a cigar, I get way more of the general pleasant taste and way less of the specific flavor notes. Whereas with a whiskey, I get the specific flavor notes and not as much of just the general whiskey taste.
That makes sense to me.
Is that? Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah, and like I'll just think like, oh, this is pleasant, but it's a lot harder for me, and it's probably an experience thing.
Yeah.
If I smoke cigars as much as I drink whiskey, I'd probably get to there.
Yeah.
But I agree that it's easier to taste the flavor. You get less of the harshness.
Yeah.
Easier to taste the pleasantness, I should say, not the individual flavors. Now, one thing I wanted to say about the flavor of a cigar, and I actually wrote this down because of during our cigar, it wasn't something that I already had. Excuse me. Is that I think with cigars, because they always say like as your whiskey breathes, the flavor changes, but I think with cigars it's way more dramatic. Like the flavor changes significantly the closer you get to like the end of the cigar. So I feel like that is a big part of it. I think the first light for me is always the most enjoyable, and then as you get towards the nub of it, it's like getting darker and ashier. I have had a select few where the closer I get to that end, I'm like, oh, this is really good.
Yeah,
but sometimes it's not.
It does tend to get a bit harsher,
especially if you accidentally let it go out. It's like
I'm real bad about getting mine wet too, where my lips go. I wonder if that affects it.
That could.
I would imagine it does in some way.
Drooling on it a little bit. Yeah.
Don't ever smoke a cigar off me.
Yeah, you don't ever want to try even pre-COVID. You don't want to try Bryce's cigar.
No.
Yeah, I'm drinking my water here since it's dry January. I do have the flavor in it. I'm a child. I hate plain water so much.
I drink a lot of Diet Mountain Dew.
Yeah, dude. Diet Pop and I know it's not good for me, but I don't really care.
I've been trying to get into tea and coffee.
Ooh,
kind of the same thing. That's why I was like, I kind of understand the process of roasting and regions and the like tea, like how long it ferments, Depends
Yeah.
on what kind of tea it is.
There's a big following for that. We should do that
We
with
should
like
do
a
that.
coffee or a tea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of us can research it more.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just know the very basics.
You could be our expert. You can do more
He's the
research.
tea guy.
Yeah.
We can have tea time.
Yeah, tea time with Bryce. It'll be your special.
I do really like tea though.
Yeah.
When you prepare tea properly, it's super good. I actually kind of like tea more than coffee now.
Is that right?
Yeah. But
Wow.
I've had like freshly ground pour over coffee,
Ooh, yeah.
which is like completely different from a Keurig. It's not even the same thing. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So like I haven't really given coffee a fair shake, I would say.
Yeah, because that was a huge like glass shatter moment, where you're in your brain you go is like literally not even a month ago that we've always done pre-ground.
Yep.
Always. And somebody
Yes.
gave us whole bean and we ground it and I was like,
Oh my God, it's completely different.
way different, dude.
Even just like, you drink coffee. Like I almost have, if I, have like a Keurig coffee, I almost have to have a second drink because it dries my mouth out so bad.
Yeah.
And you don't get that with freshly ground.
No.
It's so much more oily and deep. And I don't even like the bitterness of coffee so much. But even that is way more pleasant than the bitterness of like pre-ground coffee.
Yes.
And tea's the same way. If you ever use like loose leaf tea compared to like, bag tea, so much better.
Is that right?
Oh,
See,
yeah.
because I'm not big I haven't gotten enough into
Yep.
it for the loose leaf.
Yeah,
and
we got
stuff.
to do that.
Yeah, we will.
You know?
Yeah, and like to bring it back to whiskey, the coffee, when you were saying that, what it reminds me of is having it not pre-ground kind of reminds me of like a whiskey that's been like finished better and
Yes.
finished more properly where you're smooth finish and it's oily on your mouth and it just improves the experience of it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of funny how, it's kind of the same at its base, but just all the in between is what changes it so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of the tasting hobbies
Yep.
all have a very similar.
Yeah.
And they have that same, so let's get into the experience of the cigar.
Yep.
They have that same meditative effect.
Yep.
And this is one instance, all my listeners are just going to have a mutiny, where I actually do believe cigars can be better. Because they really force you to go away from your day. I can have a glass of whiskey and do other stuff. You really can't with a cigar.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's a lot more difficult.
That's a really good point. I never thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, you're having to keep it lit. You're having to be outdoors if you don't want your house smelling like cigar. I mean, you really have to step away from your day. The trade-off there, which is why I'm more into whiskey, is that it's almost so extreme for me with a cigar that I'm way less likely to have a cigar.
Oh, big time.
Like we were just saying, it's been months since we've had a cigar. And that trade-off.
And taking care of them, keeping them in the humidor if you want to actually have them on hand to where you can actually do them when you want,
Right.
smoke them when you want,
Right, exactly. And I used to be big into where I had my humidor souped up,
Yeah.
and I'd watch it every day. I'd check the humidity, and
Yeah.
now it's like I set it and forget it. I don't want to worry about it.
Yep.
Which luckily I made one out of a wine cooler back when I was.
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, when I was huge into it, and so now the wine cooler ones you don't have humidity issues like
Yeah.
ever. So. But yeah, so for you, the experience, because we do whiskey all the time, but sitting down and having a cigar, how's the experience different for you?
It's meditative for
Yeah.
sure. Like you said, you know what I like? I anything with the tasting hobbies, just anything. Food, I like that it can take you out of your mind a little bit. And you can just focus on what your experience is. What am I tasting? How does it feel? And am I enjoying it?
Right.
And how could it be better the next time?
Yeah.
What other things could I try or add or take away to change it and make it better?
Yeah.
So I do like that.
Now, this might be getting a little too specific, but because both whiskey and cigars, you do that.
Yep.
Where you are taking a moment to actually experience something. Now, do you have a preference of one over the other and why, like with the difference?
I would enjoy... I would say I do prefer the cigars just because it's just more pleasant to me.
Okay, yeah.
And I also like being outdoors, so that kind of adds to it. But you could also drink whiskey outdoors, so that's kind of doesn't,
That's true, but that's a big part of the experience. And the outdoors and also the smell of the cigar blending with the smell of the outdoors.
That's true. Plus, you feel kind of cool.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, you feel macho.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. And now if you put whiskey in a rocks glass, it's kind of the same. You're
Right.
like,
Yeah.
you feel macho. Yes. I definitely agree with like the outdoorsiness. I like it by like a bonfire.
Yes.
I think that experience is awesome. I also like whiskey by a bonfire. Go ahead.
I think the other thing is that I've just done it longer.
Yeah.
And it also, I did it when I was younger, and it's like nostalgic now in a way.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. I know exactly what you mean because I do get that way about whiskey as well. But if I smoke a cigar, I can tell you the last time I had that exact cigar, I can tell you where I was. I just
Yeah.
told you the ones we have were left over from the wedding, and it was like I was back at my wedding outside
Right.
smoking that cigar.
Yep.
That's exactly what I felt like. I had the same thing with whiskeys. I do that sometimes where some of them I drink them so often I don't have that.
Mhm.
But if I leave it on a shelf for too long, so the Four Roses single barrel actually
Mhm.
right next to you, I had that not long ago, and I forgot how much I love it. Four Roses single barrel, by the way, great whiskey. I forgot how much I loved it. And I went back to it, and I don't think I had really sat down and had a glass in summertime. And it was right around when we were getting ready to go golfing, and it was like I was back there, dude.
Yeah.
I was back in the summer,
Mhm.
and I was ready to go golfing and all this, and that's exactly what it's like.
Yeah, it's pretty nostalgic.
It is,
Yeah.
especially like you said, cigars. We've
Yeah.
been doing them for a while.
Yeah, that's probably partially the reason why. And like I said, I've smoked cigars. I almost exclusively drink whiskey with you,
Right.
and
right.
I've just smoked cigars casually with other people, family, friends, whatever.
Yes.
So
And that's where I start to get with whiskey, where I have that social experience, because it's like you start to talk to people who do it and talk to people who like it and compare notes, compare the types that you like. But yeah, the cigars we have been, I mean, in high school and stuff, for reference for everybody listening, we were the like bonfire and camping type people. Those were our hobbies. And so cigars were very common.
Oh, yeah.
It was like every weekend.
yeah, yeah.
So definitely has some nostalgia there for us. Another thing that I think the experience is a little bit different is you have to pay more attention to your cigar. And I think pipes are an even more dramatic example of this.
I would like to try that.
Have you ever had a pipe?
No.
Oh, we'll have to do that sometime.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, I have multiple. We can
Oh, do
for
you
sure.
really?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did not know that.
Definitely. And they are a more extreme example. You have to pay attention to it while you're doing it.
bet.
It's so easy for the pipe to go out.
Do you inhale a pipe?
No, you
Okay.
don't. Still aromatic, just like a cigar. And so to bring it back to that though, the cigars, you have to pay more attention to it.
Oh, yeah.
Or it'll go out, or
Yep.
you'll start burning funny. It's things like that.
You know what else I should add this to? I like that I can't just step away from it.
Right.
You know what I mean? I guess I missed that. Sorry, but that's a good thing too. Is like once you light it, you're pretty much stuck doing it
You're
until
locked
it's
in.
finished, right?
That's how I feel. I'm so glad you said that, because that's how I feel about activities like that. I always talk about hot tubs. I love hot tubs. I don't have one, but I want one. And that's what I love about. That's why I think I relax so well in a hot tub, is because as soon as you're wet, you're like, I'm here.
Yep.
Like I cannot step away. Whereas if I'm sitting down enjoying a glass of whiskey, I can get to where I'm like, I could be doing this. Maybe I should go do that real quick and come back. And that's really hard.
Yep.
But the other thing I was going to say is we're talking about bonfires and activities with cigars. The flip side of that coin for me that I like about whiskey is I can have a whiskey and play cards with my friends.
Yep.
I'll have whiskey when I have friends over and I'm being social and just drinking like straight whiskey and doing a good tasting of it. And that for me has that nostalgia.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I love that social feeling when I'm having whiskey. Same as when you go to like a casino or a bar,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
A cigar in a casino hits pretty good.
Dude, yes.
You go to Vegas and you light a big fat cigar in a casino. That's a feeling.
Yes, I've never been to Vegas,
Oh,
but
man.
Mountaineer near us, they
Oh,
allow,
yeah. Yep.
Oh, dude.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great feeling. You get like a Jack and Coke and a cigar and you're gambling.
Oh, my God.
That's such an awesome
You
feeling.
do. You just feel like 10 feet tall.
Yeah. And that's something I would add about the cigar experience is that drinking whiskey, and I'm not like, obviously I'm not dissing drinking whiskey because I love it. But having a cigar is totally different from anything else. Whereas drinking whiskey, you drink all kinds of things every day. And it's not just like doing that, but you do a similar activity to drinking whiskey all the time with drinking water and drinking wine and drinking mixed drinks. Whereas a cigar, it's a totally different ball game.
Yep.
Like you don't smoke other stuff regularly unless you smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
Totally.
We don't vape or smoke cigarettes or anything.
right.
It's transcendent for us.
Yeah, it's like our path into smoking is cigars. So I do like that. I love playing cards with cigars too. That's a great feeling.
You know, also for people in warmer climates, I bet you I would probably do it more. Because right now, I mean, in Ohio, it's 30 degrees.
That's
most of the
completely
time.
fair. If I grew up in a warm climate, there's a great chance.
If I lived in Miami, I'd be.
This would be a cigar podcast, probably.
Oh, yeah.
No joke.
Big time.
That's one of the reasons I got it. That's one of the reasons I traded out whiskey for cigars.
Yeah.
Was I was like, I live in Ohio. It's cold 7 months of the year,
Yeah.
and I can have a whiskey whenever I want.
Exactly.
Indoors. Yeah, that's definitely a big part of it. So kind of bringing it back to the difference in the experience that you're having while you're having it, though. I think a big part of it for me, and this is a big part of me picking whiskey over cigars, is I absolutely hate nicotine buzzes, and they do give me nicotine buzzes.
Yeah.
The buzz that you get from the two is totally different.
I remember on your bachelor party when we were sitting out on the patio.
Yes.
I don't know what I got, but I couldn't even get out of my chair. Good Lord.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I've done chewing tobacco like a couple times when I was younger, and it would make me sick just from getting dizzy.
Yeah.
And if I have a really strong, big cigar, I get that same feeling. And I totally agree with you on that.
Yes, and it kind of keeps me away from cigars because when I was smoking 1 or 2 a week, I was like totally fine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get that buzz anymore. I got tolerance to it. And now if I have one cigar, I mean, even that cigarillo we just did, mine was pretty strong because it was dark. And it was like, I mean, it hit me, and I hate that buzz.
Yeah, me too.
I hate that alcohol buzz. I feel more social. I feel loosened up.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that can get bad too. If you have too much with
Right.
alcohol, with a cigar, it's pretty easy to be like, okay, I'm going to drink some water. I'm going to eat a snack. I'm going to feel fine. With alcohol, you go too far, and it's like, there's the night. I'm going to sleep now.
Exactly.
So,
Right.
There's a flip side of that.
But you can drink way more alcohol until you get to that point than you can. I mean, one good cigar, if you don't do it, often, you're going to be sitting in that chair for a couple hours.
Exactly, dude. So that is the other side of that, and that's where I for sure choose whiskey over cigars. And like a nicotine buzz, like it goes to my head. I feel dizzy. I feel more anxious and hyper.
Yeah.
Whereas whiskey, I like sit back and I feel relaxed. It's nice.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. So one thing we glazed over with how the tasting is similar or different is the type of flavor notes that you get from both, because that's pretty significant.
Yeah.
And we did both mention that we're not as good at getting flavor
definitely
notes from
not.
cigars. I'll just be like, it tastes like good.
My flavor range with cigars is either bold or mild.
Yeah. Definitely.
So like mine today was pretty mild.
Right.
But I'm sure just pretty much darker or lighter, and mine was pretty light.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And I actually think that's another thing with cigars and whiskey. There's definitely bolder and milder whiskeys, without a doubt. But I think the distinction is way sharper with cigars between bold and mild. It's like a fully different experience.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas with whiskey, you can have bold and mild and get similar flavor notes. But like my cigar, I think I got more. Mine was, like I said, the Liga Privada, and I got more. I love darker cigars with like cocoa notes, and I got some good like cocoa, like bitter cocoa notes. And then also a little bit of like a leather and like those bitter dark notes that I do enjoy. And then, like I said, that's about all I can pull out of it.
For me, it's a little harder for you.
Yeah, I totally understand.
I mean, it's kind of like smoky and earthy.
Okay, yeah.
When you smell them, they kind of smell like dried fruit, like raisin.
Oh,
you know
yeah,
what I mean?
raisin's a good
But
one.
I would say like spices, like, something like that.
Light spices. Yep. Yeah, and then I feel the complete other way with whiskey, where I can pull out a dozen notes.
Oh, yeah.
And the lighter or darker has less of an impact on those type of notes. Another distinction that I would make is I like the notes that I get from whiskey more than I like the notes that I get from cigars.
Oh, definitely.
Now, I've had good cigars, but I love, in my opinion, and maybe this is just because I'm not as good at tasting cigars, whiskey has more complexity to it when I'm drinking it. I can taste this up front, and then this in the middle, and then this on the finish, and then I can taste it again, and it'll be a little bit different, and I can pull out new and different things. With a cigar, I'll pretty much establish those few main notes that I get from it, and that's the cigar.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I get from it.
Unless you get like the flavored wrappers.
Well, yeah.
This tastes like like grapes.
Yeah. This tastes exactly like the chocolate that they made it taste like. That's another good point, and that's another crossover with cigars and whiskey is they both have flavored versions.
Yeah.
And with both, the people who do the tastings typically don't do the flavored versions. They do
Right.
the plain versions. That's a great point. And I think there might be more crossover with cigars where more people will smoke more flavored cigars, whereas with whiskey,
Definitely.
the collectors and stuff, they very rarely do the flavored stuff, I think.
Yeah, the flavors on the cigars can get pretty overpowering. In
They
a good
really-
way.
Yeah.
In a good way. It's like candy.
Yeah. I like flavored cigars for sure when I'm not doing like a tasting.
Right.
Like the beach is a good spot for a flavored cigar. And all I want to taste is that rum coconut that they say it's going to taste
right,
like.
exactly.
And that's what I taste.
Right.
Yeah. I also think the flavoring of a cigar covers up the cigar flavor less than with whiskey.
Yeah.
With whiskey, it can be hard to taste anything.
Yeah. Fireball.
Hot water.
Cinnamon water.
Just tastes spicy. Fireball, man. I don't even know the last time I had Fireball. I don't know the last flavored whiskey that I had. I need to think about that a little bit.
I made eggnog over Christmas.
Did you?
Homemade eggnog.
Did you put any like Southern Comfort in it or anything?
I had, so I don't really have any any bourbon on hand.
Yeah.
I had little bottles of the Jack Daniel's sampler. So there was Jack Daniel's honey and just regular Jack Daniel's I put in there.
Nice.
It was good though.
Yeah.
It was really overpowering and thick.
Yes.
Like really thick. It was like custard.
Oh, really?
I followed the recipe exact and I sous vide it. So like, there was
Yeah.
no danger in it.
Right.
But it just came out so thick.
Really?
But what it was really good for was rolling a piece of bread in it and making French toast with it. Oh, it was amazing.
No way.
I kept it just for that.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah. It was
Oh,
so good.
Dude, I love eggnog.
Dude, I know. Next time I would do it, I'd just have to make it thinner, I think.
Did the French toast like taste like eggnog?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Dude, it was amazing.
That's
the French
awesome.
toast was fantastic. The drink itself was just super thick
Okay.
and overpowering.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah, I do like the thinner eggnog. I don't like if it's thicker than drinking milk. I don't like it anymore.
Yeah, see, it was like custard almost.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. No, I should say like whole milk, like a thick milk.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it. Like when it gets to like milkshake thickness, I'm like,
That's where it was too. Yeah.
No.
And when I first pulled it out, it wasn't too bad because
Okay.
it was hot.
yes.
And then as soon as it put it in the fridge and it chilled out overnight, I went to pour it in the glass and I'm like shaking it out. I'm like, what is going on? I was like, oh boy.
Picture.
Yeah.
Now I have had eggnog like that before, and I will say it's a little late for this, but I would mix some milk into it, and it wasn't too bad if you mix it with milk.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it thinned it
Man,
out.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I was just so disappointed it was so thick.
Like, oh my god.
Yeah, I was just ready to abandon the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay, so the last thing that I do want to touch on to bring it back is pairing cigars with whiskey.
Ooh.
You probably have very limited experience with this.
Almost none.
Some could say none at all. But I want to ask, if you were like, I want to try to pair this the best that I can, what would you go for? And I'll go first since you haven't done it before.
Yes.
To try
Please
to
do.
help a little bit. I like to go for some people will go for the very similar, very different, or like somewhere in the middle. I like to go closer towards the very different end of the spectrum, and I'll go to where they have one or two similarities between the cigar and the whiskey, but they're mostly different. And then I will pick which one I want to enjoy more. I'll be like, I want a weak whiskey with a strong cigar. So I want to focus on that cigar, or I want the other way around. Is kind of how
That
I
makes
will go.
sense.
But on a scale of being exactly the same, being totally different, or being somewhere in the middle, what would you go for, and which would you want to focus on?
I would probably go for something similar, and I think that it would be a good way for me to drink a smoky scotch
Oh,
because I would already have the smoke taste, and I would be able to pull more of the other flavors out.
so you would use the cigar to accentuate the scotch so that
Yes.
you could pull the non-smoky.
Yes.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
I've never actually specifically tried that.
I think because like that if I drink like a smoky scotch, that's like the main flavor, and I think already having that flavor would let me pull out something else that I wouldn't otherwise get.
Right. I know exactly what you mean. And that is how I like to use the pairing, is to whatever thing I decide I'm going to focus on, it's to learn more about that one, usually the whiskey. But I've never tried that with smoky Scotch. We'll have to do that.
Yeah, that's I don't know why. I just think that'd be something, because every time I've had Scotch, it's just kind of smoky to me.
Right.
And I don't really get much else.
Right. It's like, especially if it's peated, or even Johnny Walker, it's usually like partially peated, like it's a blend, so some of it'll be peated, and it's hard to get around. So what we'll have to do is get like a cigar and that Johnny Walker Blue.
Yes.
And we could do that and see, because it's a little bit weaker than like the Lafroig up there, where it's like, that's smoke.
Right.
So you could start with.
Right.
Yeah. That would be pretty interesting.
It might be counterintuitive though. It might make it worse.
Oh, it could.
You know what I mean?
It could. Was it your episode where we did something like that?
We did ice. I'll never forget that.
Okay. Yeah. That was memorable.
Well,
experience.
and also that's another thing that kind of differentiates whiskey between cigars, is you can experiment with stuff like that.
Yes.
Different glasses and cold, room temp.
Yes. That was the episode that we couldn't think of when we were trying to count what episodes you did. It was when we smelled flavor notes. That was you, wasn't it? And we smelled like cinnamon. Like smelled the actual.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep.
And remember, for a couple of them, it made it worse. It was like, oh gosh, yeah. But that did work with the cinnamon, I think, where we couldn't taste the cinnamon anymore.
Yep.
So we'll have to try that with smoky Scotch in a cigar.
This might be interesting.
Yeah, and
I'm somewhat of a scientist myself.
Yes,
that's how I feel right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how I feel with 99% of the things we do on this podcast.
That should be the meme for the podcast. I'm somewhat of a scientist myself.
I wonder if that's trademarked. We should find out. Yeah. But it is fun to do that with pairings, especially because you can really try. And so this is why, like a PSA to anybody, I've had people ask me for pairings, because people know that I like cigars and whiskey. And this is why I do not recommend pairings, is because it is everybody, like you and I both just said two completely different things. I like to have very different. You said very similar. It is so hard to find a cigar that you would like. Like, you have to get really good at tasting cigars to recommend a cigar and somebody like that cigar. Same way with whiskey. I'm finally, I think, to the point where I'll recommend whiskeys and people will like them. Like, they'll say, I like this, 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 and this. And I'll say, okay, try this. And they'll like it. To do that with a pairing is like impossible. Yeah. To be like, okay, try this cigar with this whiskey and you enjoy that is like so difficult. You have to be a complete connoisseur to be able to do that.
Right. Well, and even so, your flavor, your palate is going to be so much different than anyone else's.
Exactly. The odds of you and I having the same favorite whiskey are slim. Yeah. Same with the same favorite cigar. So the odds of you and I having the same cigar whiskey pairing is like
slim to none.
Yeah, basically nothing at all. So that's why I don't recommend pairings, but I always recommend you either pick to do the same flavors, different flavors, or somewhere in between, and pick whether you want to like the cigar or the whiskey, which one you want to focus on.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely have to try that with the Johnny Walker. More experiments, man. That's what this show is. I love trying weird.
We're just winging it.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying different things to see if they work or not. Like,
let's bring in Bloody Marys.
Let's do it. You know what? Come on. Bloody Marys, Irish mules with some Irish whiskey.
Perfect.
Boom. I mean, come on. Yeah. We'll have to get into some neat stuff with that, but we got to get back to some whiskey tastings here in February. I can't wait to get in to get back to that.
I'm sure you got all kinds of new ones for Christmas and whatnot.
Yes, I did, and I also have a bunch of whiskeys that people have asked me to try, and so I have a couple episodes planned for those, and it's like I can't.
What are some of those?
So we do have, I mentioned a couple on the Q&A episode. We're going to do Johnny Walker Black versus Chivas Regal, which is another blended Scotch, and they're like kind of competitors, so it'll be cool to try those side by side. That's the next one that I can think of. There's a couple of other like specific whiskeys people asked me to try. I've been trying to get into Scotch a little bit more. Yeah. It's because we living in America, everybody's a bourbon guy.
Right.
And so it's really easy to try a bunch of different bourbons, but I want to learn more about the Scotch side.
I was going to ask you, do you have trouble finding them?
Scotches?
Yeah.
More than bourbon,
yeah.
I mean, you go to the store and it's 4 shelves of bourbon and 1 of Scotch. Yeah. So it's a little bit more tough to get variety.
Right.
But yeah. But all in all, cigars versus whiskey, let's kind of round that out. What do you like more, dislike more about both?
I like how pleasant cigars are, and I like that it keeps me occupied and takes my mind off of other things, and I have to sit down and focus on it.
Yeah.
It's a little less accessible than whiskey,
Right.
and also whiskey's a lot more complex to me.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's kind of more fun. I can see myself smoking cigars more often than tasting whiskey
yeah.
because I enjoy it more, but also the whiskey is kind of more fun to me because it's so much more complex.
Right.
I feel better about my review.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm more satisfied with the fact that I can actually taste different things and know what I'm tasting.
Okay. Yeah. In the whiskey.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. You summed it up perfectly. I was actually going to say basically the same thing, except something that popped into my head when you said that was something that I like more about whiskey. I never really put to words is whiskey is less likely to overpower something else that you're eating or drinking, because I was just thinking about like barbecues in the summertime and stuff. And if you have a cigar and then like a steak,
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
a good point.
It's like, nope.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. And also, we had mentioned in the beginning, I don't remember if it was before or after we started the actual recording, was that the cigar sticks with you and it has the aftertaste for like 2 days.
Yeah, I've got it right now.
Yeah.
I haven't had a drink in a while, and it's coming back pretty strong.
Yeah, and you wake up the next morning, and it's like...
Yeah, and I wonder, maybe somebody knows, there has to be some way. Like, maybe you have to, like, I don't know, put ginger in water and gargle it or something. I don't know.
So specific. Yeah.
We need a scientist.
We do.
Where's Willem Dafoe?
This is... I'm something of a scientist myself, you know. If you could come up with a serum, like a vial, that you drink and then have a cigar
away.
And it doesn't do that...
Don't say this. We're going to have to invent it.
I'm cutting it out. If anybody listening, no, you know why? Because we aren't smart enough to come up with that. If anybody listening can, I want 10% of your profits for the idea. But also, I want like just free samples.
Yeah,
because that is the truth.
That would honestly be a complete game changer. I bet you somebody out there has some kind of concoction that would help.
Yeah, even like a home remedy where they're like, oh, I always brush my teeth with turpentine.
That is the biggest. To me, that is actually the biggest turnoff of smoking cigars.
Definitely, especially if it's before. You don't want to do it before a meal that you want to enjoy, because it just kills the flavor.
Yeah,
that's why I always have it after meal. But that's the one thing I would add that I prefer with whiskey is a whiskey and a good steak is like heaven, chef's kiss. Like a cigar, you would not want to have with a good steak.
Yeah,
you wouldn't want to do that. So. But other than that, everything that you said, cigars have more of a general pleasant flavor, and they really pull you away from your day. But whiskey's a lot easier because it doesn't pull you away from your day as much, and you get more notes. It's a little more satisfying to be like, this tastes like this than this than this. So I would totally agree. That is about all that I have to say about whiskey and cigars. Do you have anything that you want to add about the experience?
Nope.
I think we covered all of our bases.
And then some.
If you guys, I want to hear your guys' opinions about it. Like I always say at the end of the episode, I want to hear your opinion about, cigars versus whiskey. If there's anybody listening who prefers like cigars like extremely and doesn't like whiskey yet, I recommend you use similar tricks between cigars and whiskey to take whichever hobby you don't do yet. So like with whiskey, like I said, trying side by side, that came from cigars, and that's helpful. Things like that. But once you get into pairings, it's a ton of fun.
Yeah.
And we'll have to do a pairing episode, but obviously we couldn't because it was dry January. Maybe we'll do a pairing with the Johnny Walker Blue. And
that'll be fun.
That'd be pretty neat to see if it takes away the smokiness or not.
Just have like 3 different kinds,
Yeah, that would be super cool. So, but that is all that we've got for the episode today. So I will leave you guys with learn to drink, drink to learn. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Whiskey Noobs. If you like the show, please make sure that you tell anyone you know who you think would be interested in the hobby or in the podcast. That way we can help to spread the word and continue to grow. Please also make sure to review the show on Apple Podcasts and share our posts on Instagram at whiskey_noobs or on TikTok at Whiskey Noobs Podcast. It only takes a couple of minutes, and it really does a lot to help spread the word and grow the podcast. Also, there is an email list for the show. If you'd like to join, you can just send an email to whiskeynoobspodcast@gmail.com and in the subject line put email list. I will add you to the list, and then you'll be updated every month with the whiskeys that we will be drinking on the show throughout the month. That way you can drink right along with us and see if you're getting the same notes. Once again, thank you so much for listening to the show. The Whiskey Noobs Podcast does not support underage or otherwise irresponsible consumption of alcohol.